Her best friend said, "You're not good enough for her." I told him to leave. My girlfriend snapped, "Apologize or sleep on the couch." I smiled and said, "Perfect." That night I exposed his affair, and 3 days later, the police came knocking. My name is Alex, I'm 32, and I never thought one simple sentence could destroy a relationship. But that's exactly what happened. All it took were 6 words. "Then go sleep on the couch tonight." It sounded harmless enough, like something couples might say during a small argument. But in that moment, I knew something deep inside me had snapped. That line didn't just hurt. It opened my eyes. That night, we were having dinner at my apartment. Sarah, my girlfriend of over a year, had invited her best friend, Mark, a guy who never missed a chance to subtly put me down. He worked in finance, always dressed in those sharp, tailored suits, and spoke like he owned the world. From the very first time I met him, I could tell he looked at me like I was less than him, just some ordinary guy working from home, a freelance graphic designer trying to build something of his own. First, I tried to ignore it. Every time he threw out those little insults, I just smiled politely, hoping Sarah would notice and say something. But she never did. She'd just laugh along, maybe give me a quick look as if to say, "Don't make a scene." But every time it happened, something in me grew a little more distant from her. That night, Mark walked into my apartment like he owned the place. He looked around and said, "Cozy place. Man must be nice working from home if you can afford it." It wasn't just the words, it was the tone, the smirk, the way he looked around like he was assessing the value of everything I owned. I could feel my jaw tighten, but I bit my tongue. I didn't want to start anything. Dinner was supposed to be simple, a nice evening, some wine, maybe a few laughs. But Mark had a way of turning every conversation into a competition. He talked about his job, his new car, his latest business trip to Europe. Every sentence he spoke sounded like a subtle reminder that he was doing better than me. And Sarah, she seemed to eat it up. Her eyes lit up when he talked. She laughed at his jokes. She even touched his arm a few times when she was laughing too hard. I tried to focus on the food, on breathing, on staying calm. But then he looked straight at me and said, "You know, Sarah always deserved someone ambitious. No offense, man, but she's got a lot going for her. I just hope you can keep up." That was it. That was the moment I decided I was done. I looked him dead in the eye and said, "Get out." Sarah froze. Her smile dropped. She looked at me like I had just slapped someone at a family dinner. "Alex," she snapped. "What's wrong with you? He's my friend." "He's your friend who just insulted me in my own home," I said, my voice calm but firm. "I don't want him here." Mark laughed, like he couldn't believe I'd actually stood up for myself. "Relax, man," he said. "We're just joking around. Don't be so sensitive." I took a deep breath, stood up, and pointed to the door. "Get out, Mark. Now." Sarah stood between us, her eyes flashing with anger. "You're overreacting," she said. "If you can't be polite to my friends, maybe you should sleep on the couch tonight." That was it, the sentence that broke everything. Sleep on the couch. In my own apartment. Because I refused to let a man who disrespected me stay for dessert. I looked at her, the woman I thought I loved, and all I could say was, "Perfect." That one word carried everything I felt. The disappointment, the betrayal, the exhaustion. I didn't shout. I didn't argue. I just walked past her, grabbed her bag, and started packing her things. Sarah stood there frozen, her mouth open. "What are you doing?" "Packing," I said quietly. "Because if I'm sleeping on the couch in my own apartment, then you don't belong here anymore." Mark tried to step in, his face turning red. "You're crazy, man," he said. "You can't just kick her out." I turned to him slowly. "You should leave before I decide to tell your fiancé about the woman you were with last week." That shut him up instantly. His eyes widened, and his jaw tightened. He knew exactly what I was talking about. See, what they didn't know was that I'd seen him around town. A few times, actually. Once at a restaurant, once outside a hotel. But he wasn't with his fiancée either time. He was with someone else. A different woman. I'd even taken photos without really knowing why. Maybe it was just instinct. a quiet sense that someday I might need the truth. So that night when I said that, Mark's confidence shattered. He grabbed his coat and walked out without another word. Sarah started crying, saying I was overreacting, saying I was letting my ego ruin everything. But I knew the truth. The moment she told me to sleep on the couch, she'd chosen her side. I left her clothes in a bag near the door and sat back down. She yelled. She pleaded. But I just sat there in silence. I wasn't angry anymore. I was numb. Later that night, I sent those photos of Mark to his fiancée's family. I didn't add any message, just the pictures. 3 days later, the police knocked on my door. 3 days later, there was a hard knock at my door. The kind that instantly fills you with dread even if you haven't done anything wrong. When I opened it, 2 police officers were standing there. One of them, a tall man with a calm voice, asked, "Are you Alex Reynolds?" I nodded, confused. He continued, "We've received a report from a Miss Sarah Blake, claiming you're illegally holding her property and have locked her out of her residence." For a second, I almost laughed. Residence? My apartment was under my name alone. I paid the rent, the utilities, everything. She never even got mail here. But I could tell from their serious expressions that they were just doing their job. So I invited them in calmly and handed over my lease documents. Every page had only my name. I also showed them the bank transfers, each monthly payment straight from my account. The officers looked at each other and nodded. "All right, sir," one said. "It looks like this is your place." Then he glanced back toward the hallway and added, "She's downstairs. We recommend letting her collect her belongings while we're here to avoid any further issues." I agreed. I didn't want any more drama. They waited by the door as Sarah walked in. She looked different. Not sad, not apologetic, just angry. Her eyes were red from crying, but her expression was hard, almost cold. She didn't even look at me. She just walked straight to the bedroom and started grabbing her clothes, her makeup, her shoes, everything that used to be scattered all over the place as if she owned it. I watched her quietly. The officers kept things professional, standing nearby, saying nothing. When she passed the dining table, she stopped for a second. Her eyes fell on the chair where Mark had sat that night. Then she looked at me and said softly, "You ruined everything." I didn't respond because deep down I knew that wasn't true. They ruined it themselves. When she was done, she zipped her suitcase, walked out without another word, and the officers followed. One of them gave me a nodding smile. "Thank you for cooperating, sir. Have a good evening." The door closed behind them, and for the first time in months, the apartment was silent, peaceful, but heavy. That night, I sat in the living room, a glass of whiskey in my hand, staring at the empty space where her things used to be. There was no anger left, just a quiet sense of relief. But that calm didn't last long. The next day, I received a text from Mark. "Hope you're proud of yourself. You humiliated her. Everyone knows what kind of loser you are now." I stared at the message, shook my head slowly, and smiled. "Perfect," I whispered to myself again. That word, the same word I'd said the night it all fell apart, had become my closure. I didn't reply. Instead, I opened my laptop, pulled up the folder containing the photos I'd taken months ago, and sent them directly to Mark's fiancée's family. No message. No explanation. Just the truth pixel by pixel. Within 2 days, his engagement collapsed. His fiancée's family verified the photos, and the truth exploded like a bomb. Mark's perfect life, the designer suits, the fancy job, the reputation he loved so much, crumbled overnight. Sarah must have found out because I got another text from her shortly after. "Did you do this?" she wrote. I didn't respond. I deleted the message and blocked her number. For a few days, it was quiet again. I focused on work, cleaned my apartment, started sleeping better. The silence felt different now. Not empty, but peaceful. I thought the storm was over. Then, 2 days later, she came back. This time, there were no tears. No pleading. Just anger. She knocked once, hard, then crossed her arms, waiting like she owned the place. When I didn't open, she yelled through the door, You think you're so smart, Alex? You'll pay for this. I didn't respond. I thought she was just trying to get a reaction. But the next afternoon, I got a call from my landlord. Hey, Alex, he said, hesitant. We received a complaint from someone named Sarah Blake. She's saying you changed the locks illegally and threw out a co-tenant's belongings. The police might contact us again. My heart sank, but only for a moment. I knew what she was doing, trying to twist the story. She'd filed a new statement, claiming she was a legal tenant who paid rent in cash. Thankfully, my landlord knew me well enough to doubt it. Still, he told me to gather all my documents just in case. Sure enough, a few days later, there was another knock on my door. The police again. This time, the officers looked slightly annoyed. Mr. Reynolds, one said, Miss Sarah Blake has filed another report claiming unlawful eviction. We just need to verify a few details. I handed over everything, the lease, the rent receipts, even screenshots of our text messages showing she never paid a dime. They reviewed it all carefully, then nodded. All right, sir. You're the sole tenant here. Then one of the officers added something that made Sarah, who was standing behind them in the hallway, completely lose her composure. Technically, she doesn't have legal residence here. She can't be evicted from a place she never had the right to live in. Sarah exploded. So what? He can just throw me out like trash. The officer stayed calm. Ma'am, you moved in informally. You're not on the lease. He hasn't broken any law. For a moment, I almost felt bad. She looked small, defeated, embarrassed. But then she glared at me and said, You think this is over? You ruined Mark's life too. He lost everything because of you. That's when I finally spoke. No, Sarah. He ruined his own life. I just stopped protecting him. The officers asked me to stay inside while she collected the rest of her things. She walked in silently, picked up a few forgotten boxes, and left without another word. When the door closed behind them, the silence felt different. Not heavy, just empty, like the final page of a book you'd been trying to finish for too long. That night, I sat on the couch she once told me to sleep on, and I thought about everything. The fights, the disrespect, the nights I stayed quiet just to keep the peace. And it hit me, I hadn't lost anything. I just finally made space for peace to exist. A few days later, I got a message from a mutual friend. Dude, did you hear? Mark's engagement is officially over. His fiancée's family went public about his affair. Everyone's talking about it. I didn't smile. I didn't feel victorious. I just felt done. Mark's reputation collapsed completely. His company found out. His fiancée blocked him. His friends stopped inviting him to events. The man who used to walk around like he was untouchable was suddenly jobless, single, and humiliated. Sarah didn't fare much better. I heard she moved back in with her parents after running out of money. None of her friends wanted to get involved with her drama anymore. It was like watching two people who once thought they were above everyone finally face the consequences they'd earned. Meanwhile, I went back to my routine freelance work, gym, quiet evenings with music playing in the background. My apartment felt different now. Lighter, calmer. It finally belonged to me again. Weeks later, I met someone new. Emily. She was a friend of a client, a writer who needed a book cover designed. We started talking, slowly at first, then naturally. She was kind, grounded, and real. When she asked about my last relationship, I told her a simplified version of the story. No drama, just facts. She looked at me and said softly, You handled it better than most people would have. I smiled but didn't respond, because maybe I didn't handle it better, just differently. I learned that silence can be louder than any argument. That sometimes, the best revenge isn't shouting, or fighting, or explaining. It's moving on without looking back. I don't hate Sarah or even Mark anymore. They taught me something I'll never forget. When someone shows you how little they respect you, believe them the first time. Don't beg. Don't argue. Don't try to prove your worth. Just close the door and let them live with themselves. Now, every morning when I wake up, the apartment feels peaceful. The sunlight fills the room, and for the first time in a long time, it feels like it's mine again. I think back to that night, to that one sentence that changed everything. Then go sleep on the couch. I didn't. I slept just fine. And when I opened my eyes the next morning, I finally felt free. Completely, unapologetically free. If you've ever been looked down on or disrespected by someone you loved, remember this. You don't owe anyone your dignity. Stand up once, walk away once, and watch how peace finds you. Hit that subscribe button for more real-life stories of respect, revenge, and redemption.